There is an envelope on the table beside me. It has been sitting there for days, untouched, unopened, waiting for a moment that feels impossible to prepare for. And if you are watching this, perhaps that moment has finally arrived. Perhaps you are the woman who has somehow found her way into my son's heart. Perhaps you are the woman he cannot stop thinking about when he should be sleeping. Perhaps you are the woman whose name appears in his mind during meetings, during flights, during the quiet moments he never talks about. And before I ask you a single question, before I ask whether you love him, before I ask whether you see a future with him, I need you to open this envelope, not because there is a contract inside, not because there is a list of expectations, not because I want to test you. There are already too many tests in life. No, inside that envelope is something far more important, the truth. The truth about what it means to love someone who was never built for ordinary life. The truth about what love asks from a woman when she chooses a man whose mind is always racing toward tomorrow. And the truth about what a mother quietly hopes for when she imagines the woman who might someday stand beside her son. But before we open it together, let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone whose future felt larger than the room you were standing in? Have you ever looked at a person and known they were carrying dreams so heavy that even they did not fully understand them? Have you ever loved someone whose greatest strength was also their greatest burden? If you have, then you already understand more than most people. And before we continue, if this conversation feels meaningful to you, I would love for you to gently subscribe so we can spend more quiet moments together. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. These conversations become more special when I know where in the world they are reaching. If someone you love might need to hear these words, please share this with them. And if you enjoy thoughtful conversations about love, family, and relationships, I hope you will stay with me. Now, let's talk about the envelope, because what is inside is not really paper. It is years. Years of watching a boy become a man. Years of seeing how loneliness can hide behind success. Years of understanding that achievement and love are not the same thing. Many people assume that when someone becomes successful, everything becomes easier. It doesn't. Sometimes it becomes harder, much harder, because the more visible a person becomes, the more difficult it becomes to know who truly sees them. People see accomplishments. People see headlines. People see victories. But very few people see exhaustion. Very few people see fear. Very few people see the moments when a person quietly wonders whether they are enough. As a mother, I have witnessed both versions. I have seen confidence, and I have seen vulnerability. I have seen determination, and I have seen heartbreak. I have watched my son carry responsibilities that most people will never understand. And through all those years, one thought has remained in my heart. Who will be there when the noise disappears? Who will sit beside him when there are no cameras? Who will understand the silence behind the ambition? Who will love the human being instead of the image? Maybe that woman is you. Maybe she isn't. But if there is any possibility that she is, then there are things I need you to know. The first thing inside the envelope is this: do not fall in love with a future version of him. Fall in love with who he is on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Fall in love with the man who forgets things, the man who worries, the man who becomes frustrated, the man who sometimes gets lost inside his own thoughts. Because every relationship eventually reaches a moment when dreams step aside and reality sits down at the table. And reality is where true love begins. Anyone can love potential. Anyone can love excitement. Anyone can love possibility. But can you love imperfection? Can you love uncertainty? Can you love a person on the days when they are difficult to understand? That is where love reveals its character. I often wonder how many relationships fail because people accidentally fall in love with a story instead of a person. The story is exciting. The person is real. The story sparkles. The person struggles. The story is easy. The person requires patience. And if you ever marry my son, I hope you choose the person every single day. Not the story, the person. Because stories change, people grow, people age, people make mistakes. And lasting love survives only when it is built on something deeper than admiration, Tell me honestly, have you ever stayed beside someone during a season when they were difficult to love? Not impossible to love, just difficult. Because there is a difference. Difficult moments are not signs that love has failed. Sometimes they are opportunities for love to prove itself. One of the hardest lessons I learned in life is that relationships are not sustained by feelings alone. Feelings rise and fall, feelings come and go, feelings change with circumstances, but commitment is different. Commitment remains seated, even when emotions temporarily leave the room. And if there is one thing I hope the woman who loves my son understands, it is this. Love is not measured by how strongly you feel during beautiful moments. Love is measured by what you choose during difficult ones. That truth took me years to understand. Years. Because when we are young, we imagine love as certainty, as confidence, as clarity. But mature love often looks very different. Sometimes mature love is staying. Sometimes mature love is listening. Sometimes mature love is forgiving. Sometimes mature love is choosing kindness when pride would be easier. The older I become, the more I realize that great relationships are rarely built from grand gestures. They are built from thousands of small decisions. A hand held at the right moment, a conversation that lasts longer than expected, a forgiveness offered before it is earned, a sacrifice made without keeping score. Those are the moments that create lasting love, not the dramatic ones, the quiet ones. And if you are the woman opening this envelope, I hope you understand how powerful those quiet moments truly are. Because one day, when youth has faded and excitement has softened into familiarity, those moments will be the foundation beneath everything else. The second thing inside the envelope is a question. Not for your mind, for your heart. Can you be loved? I know that sounds strange. Most people ask whether they can love someone else. Very few ask whether they can receive love. Yet some of the most beautiful people carry invisible walls around their hearts. They know how to give, but they do not know how to receive. They know how to care for others, but they do not know how to let others care for them. They know how to support, but they do not know how to lean. And relationships become lonely when only one person is allowed to be strong. If you ever become part of our family, I hope you allow yourself to be fully seen, not the polished version, not the perfect version, the real version. Because intimacy begins where performance ends, and love becomes deepest when two people stop pretending. That may be the most important truth inside this envelope. And there is still one more thing I have not shown you. One final page. One final truth. One final reason this envelope has remained unopened for so long. Because what is written there is not about my son. It is about you. And whether you are ready for what love eventually asks from every woman brave enough to say yes. The final page inside that envelope is still resting in your hands. I imagine you sitting quietly for a moment. Maybe with a cup of tea that has already gone cold. Maybe with memories you did not expect to revisit tonight. Maybe wondering why a mother would place so much importance on a single question before asking a woman to marry her son. The reason is simple. Marriage is not really about the wedding day. It never was. It is not about flowers. It is not about photographs. It is not about the dress, the music, the guests, or the celebration. Those things are beautiful. They matter. But they are not the foundation. The foundation is what happens years later when life becomes ordinary. Because eventually every relationship arrives there. The excitement settles. The novelty fades. The world stops applauding. And two people are left sitting across from each other, looking into the face of reality. That is where true love either deepens or disappears. As a mother, I have spent many years thinking about that moment. Not because I worried whether my son would find someone, but because I worried whether he would find someone who understands what lasting love actually requires. Many people want the rewards of love. Fewer people are prepared for the responsibilities of it. They want companionship, but not sacrifice. They want loyalty, but not patience. They want understanding, but they struggle to offer it. And yet every successful relationship is built upon those very things. I remember being younger and believing that compatibility was mostly about having things in common. The same interests, the same hobbies, the same tastes, the same opinions. But life taught me something very different. Compatibility is not about agreeing on everything. Compatibility is about how two people handle the moments when they disagree. It is easy to feel connected when everything is going well. The real test arrives when stress enters the room, when disappointment arrives, when plans fail, when expectations are not met, when one person is hurting and neither knows exactly how to fix it. That is when character becomes visible. That is when love reveals its depth. And if you are the woman holding this envelope, I hope you understand something important. My son does not need someone who agrees with him all the time. He does not need someone who admires him endlessly. He does not need someone who simply follows wherever he goes. He needs someone who remains honest, someone kind enough to speak the truth, someone brave enough to disagree when necessary, someone strong enough to stand beside him without disappearing into his shadow. Have you ever noticed how many relationships fail because one person slowly stops being themselves? It rarely happens all at once. It happens quietly, little by little. They stop expressing opinions, they stop sharing concerns, they stop revealing fears, they become smaller versions of themselves because they believe love requires that sacrifice. But healthy love does not ask you to become less. Healthy love gives you room to become more. If you ever marry a man, I hope you never lose yourself trying to keep him, because the right relationship does not erase your identity. It protects it, nurtures it, celebrates it. And if there is one thing I would want for the woman who joins our family, it would be that she never feels she must shrink in order to belong. I would want her laughter to remain loud, her dreams to remain alive, her opinions to remain valuable, her individuality to remain intact. Because marriage should not feel like the end of a woman's story. It should feel like the beginning of a new chapter, where both stories continue growing together. Sometimes I wonder whether women hear that often enough. Especially women who spend years caring for everyone else. Women who become wives, mothers, caretakers, supporters. Women who give pieces of themselves away every day until they barely remember what belongs to them. If that describes you, let me ask you something. When was the last time someone asked about your dreams? Not your responsibilities, not your obligations, not what others need from you. Your dreams, the ones you carry quietly, the ones you rarely discuss, the ones that still live somewhere deep inside your heart. Because a loving relationship should make room for those dreams too. A woman should never feel invisible inside her own marriage, and neither should a man. That brings me to another page hidden inside the envelope, a page about loneliness. Because loneliness is one of the least discussed parts of love. People assume loneliness only exists when someone is alone, but some of the loneliest people in the world are sitting beside someone every day. Physical presence is not the same thing as emotional connection. Sharing a house is not the same thing as sharing a life. Sleeping beside someone is not the same thing as being understood by them. Understanding requires attention, curiosity, effort, and time. Real time, not distracted time, not hurried time, intentional time. The kind where two people stop everything else and genuinely ask, "How are you?" and then stay long enough to hear the real answer. Not the convenient answer, the real one. I think every marriage needs those moments. Without them, people slowly drift apart. Not because they stop loving each other, because they stop seeing each other. And being unseen is one of the most painful experiences a human being can carry. Perhaps that is why I care so deeply about the woman who might someday marry my son. I do not want her to simply love him. I want her to truly see him, his strengths, his fears, his exhaustion, his hopes, his humanity, and I want him to see her with the same depth, because mutual understanding is one of the purest forms of love, far more powerful than romance alone. Far more lasting than attraction alone, far more meaningful than admiration alone. There is another question written inside the envelope. A question I hope you answer honestly. Can you forgive? Not once, not twice, repeatedly, because every long relationship eventually becomes a story of forgiveness. No human being escapes that reality. People make mistakes. People disappoint each other. People say things they wish they could take back. People fail. And while trust matters deeply, Forgiveness is often what allows trust to be rebuilt after damage occurs. Without forgiveness, relationships become museums, places where old mistakes are permanently displayed, places where old wounds are constantly revisited, places where nobody is allowed to grow beyond their worst moments. I would never want that for my son. And I would never want that for the woman he loves. I would want both of them to be given room to evolve, room to learn, room to become wiser than they were yesterday, because growth is impossible where grace does not exist. As I sit here thinking about the woman who may someday become family, I realize something else. The older I become, the less interested I am in perfection. Perfection is exhausting. Perfection creates distance. Perfection prevents intimacy. What I value now is authenticity, honesty, kindness, emotional courage, the willingness to say, I am struggling, the willingness to say, I was wrong, the willingness to say, I need you. Those simple sentences have saved more relationships than pride ever has, and perhaps that is what this envelope has really been about all along. Not finding the perfect woman, not finding the flawless partner, not finding someone who never makes mistakes, but finding someone who understands that love is built between imperfect people who choose each other anyway. Day after day, year after year, season after season. Even when life becomes difficult, even when circumstances change, even when certainty disappears, because that is when commitment becomes visible, that is when devotion becomes real. And there is still one final letter hidden beneath everything else. The letter I have never shown anyone. The letter that contains the one question I would ask before I ever asked a woman to marry my son. A question so important that everything else inside this envelope exists only to prepare you for it. And once you read that question, there will be no way to look at love the same way again. The final letter is in your hands now. For a long time, I wondered whether anyone would ever read it. Not because I doubted that my son would find love. A mother always hopes her child will be loved. A mother always hopes someone will eventually see the beautiful parts of him that the rest of the world misses. What I doubted was whether someone would be willing to understand the responsibility that comes with loving another human being deeply. Because love is beautiful. But love is also serious. Not heavy in a frightening way. Not restrictive. Not burdensome. Serious in the sense that it changes lives, it shapes futures, it influences generations. And sometimes we forget that. We speak about love as if it is only a feeling that arrives unexpectedly, a feeling that sweeps us away, a feeling that either exists or does not exist. But after many years of living, loving, losing, rebuilding, hoping, and learning, I have come to believe that love is far more than a feeling. Love is a decision. Not a single decision made once. Thousands of decisions made repeatedly. The decision to stay curious about someone after years together. The decision to listen when it would be easier to assume. The decision to remain gentle when frustration feels justified. The decision to protect the relationship instead of protecting your pride. Those decisions rarely make headlines. Nobody applauds them. Nobody notices them. Yet they are the invisible threads holding entire families together. And that is why this final letter matters. Because before I ask whether you love my son, before I ask whether you could imagine spending your life with him, before I ask whether you could become part of our family, I need to ask something deeper, something more important, something that has nothing to do with him, and everything to do with you. Are you willing to let yourself be loved, not admired, not desired, not pursued, loved, completely, honestly, deeply? Because many people spend years searching for love while secretly protecting themselves from it. They build walls so carefully that nobody can reach the heart hidden behind them. Sometimes those walls were built after betrayal, sometimes after disappointment, sometimes after grief, sometimes after years of feeling unseen. And while those walls may protect us from pain, they often protect us from love as well. I have known women who gave everything to others but never believed they deserved the same devotion in return. Women who supported everyone around them while quietly carrying their own loneliness. Women who offered understanding without receiving it, compassion without receiving it, patience without receiving it. And somewhere along the way, they stopped expecting more. They convinced themselves that giving was enough. But it is not enough. Not for a healthy relationship. Love must travel in both directions. A marriage cannot thrive when one heart constantly pours and the other only receives. The strongest partnerships are built when both people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, safe enough to be imperfect, safe enough to be human. That word human becomes more meaningful every year, because the older I become, the less impressed I am by perfection. Perfection creates distance. Humanity creates connection. Perfection makes people perform. Humanity allows people to breathe. When I think about the woman who might marry my son, I do not imagine someone flawless. I imagine someone real. Someone who laughs loudly when something is genuinely funny. Someone who cries when her heart is overwhelmed. Someone who admits when she is afraid. Someone who admits when she needs help. Someone who understands that strength and vulnerability can exist together. Those are the qualities that survive difficult years. Those are the qualities that build lasting families. And families matter more than most people realize. Not because families are perfect. They are not. Every family carries scars. Every family carries mistakes. Every family has stories they wish had unfolded differently. But families also carry something beautiful. They carry continuity. They carry belonging. They remind us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. One day, long after careers have changed, long after achievements have faded, long after public opinions have shifted, the people sitting around your table will matter more than almost anything else. The conversations, the traditions, the shared memories, the laughter that only family understands, those become treasures. And that is why I have spent so much time thinking about love, not because I am searching for perfection for my son, but because I am searching for peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing two people have found a safe place in each other. Have you ever noticed how rare that is? A truly safe place, not a place where someone tolerates you, a place where someone understands you, not a place where you must constantly prove your worth, a place where your worth is already known, not a place where you perform, a place where you rest. That kind of love changes people. It softens fears. It heals old wounds. It gives courage during difficult seasons. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that we do not have to carry life alone. For years, I believed independence was the ultimate strength, and independence is valuable. It matters. But eventually I discovered something even stronger: interdependence. Two people choosing to support one another. Not because they cannot survive alone, because life becomes richer together. That distinction matters. A healthy relationship is not built from need. It is built from choice. Every morning, two people wake up and choose each other again. Even when life is busy. Even when stress appears. Even when circumstances become difficult. They continue choosing. That is love. Not the dramatic version shown in movies. The quiet version that survives ordinary life. The version that remains after excitement settles. The version that still reaches for a hand after decades together. The version that says, I am here. Again and again. Year after year. I think that is what every mother hopes for her child. Not constant happiness. Nobody experiences that. Not a perfect life. Such a thing does not exist. But a trustworthy companion, someone who remains, someone whose loyalty does not depend on convenience, someone who understands that love is not measured during easy seasons. It is revealed during difficult ones. As I look at this final letter, I realize there is only one thing left to say. If you truly love someone, do not wait forever to tell them. Do not assume there will always be another opportunity. Do not postpone important conversations because they feel uncomfortable. Life is more fragile than we like to admit. Time moves faster than we expect. The people we love deserve clarity. They deserve honesty. They deserve to know how much they matter. Too many words remain unspoken until it is too late. Too many hearts remain guarded because fear feels safer than vulnerability. Too many people spend years waiting for certainty before taking action. But certainty rarely arrives. Love has always required courage. It required courage when people wrote letters by hand. It requires courage now, and it will require courage long after all of us are gone. Because every meaningful relationship asks the same thing. Will you risk your heart for something beautiful? Will you allow yourself to be known? Will you allow yourself to be loved? Will you choose connection despite uncertainty? Will you keep showing up even when life becomes complicated? Those questions matter far more than perfect answers, and if you can answer them with sincerity, if you can answer them with kindness, if you can answer them with courage, then perhaps you already understand everything that was hidden inside this envelope from the beginning. It was never really about proving yourself. It was never about earning approval. It was never about passing a test. It was about understanding what love actually is. Love is not possession. Love is not control. Love is not performance. Love is presence. Love is trust. Love is patience. Love is forgiveness. Love is choosing someone repeatedly, even when life changes around you. And if you ever become part of this family, my greatest hope would not be that you make my son happy every moment of every day. No one can do that. My greatest hope would be that the two of you create a relationship where both of you feel seen, respected, valued, protected, encouraged, and deeply loved. Because at the end of everything, that is what most human beings are truly searching for. Not perfection, not status, not applause. Love. Real love. The kind that remains when everything else fades. The kind that survives ordinary days. The kind that becomes stronger with time. The kind that turns two separate journeys into one shared story. And if that kind of love is standing in front of you today, do not let fear make the decision. Do not let doubt write the ending. Do not wait for perfect conditions.